It's story time on this chapter of COP. I'll be sharing how two great friends begin to walk separate paths, leading to a choice to dissolve the friendship. I'll also begin to open up about how sometimes immaturity can make a person blind to the reasons why space or absence is needed in certain outgrown relationships. It's time to open the chapter, Released for a Reason. Welcome to another chapter of Coleman on Purpose. It is David J. Coleman here, and I want to thank you once again for coming, turning on, listening, watching, however you're getting this. I thank you for listening to this podcast. Your words of encouragement, the when's the next podcast, all of those things, they truly do make a difference, and I thank you so much. I hope you're getting something from each time that I do one of these podcasts, and it really feels good to have this going and keeping this going and having the momentum to make sure that I'm bringing you stuff that's on my mind, but that I've wanted to talk about for such a long time. And so that's what this podcast is for. It's for people searching for something, trying to find a purpose, trying to find their way through this thing we call life. And that's why I do it. And so it is May now, and I can't believe how fast the time is flying. I hope you got to listen to the last chapter that I did, which was called When I Grow Up. If you have not listened, please go back and listen to that one. It turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to be at first. So I'm like, who's going to want to sit and listen to somebody talk about a child's like movie, but get so much from just watching a movie like that? But go back and listen to it. I think you will thoroughly enjoy it. This particular chapter, the 18th chapter, it's called Released for a Reason. Now, this particular chapter was actually written today. I had a flight out this morning, and I probably would have been too tired to like really write on anybody's, plane. Sometimes we have downtime where some people read, some people do other things during that time. But I particularly sometimes like to write because I get some great ideas sometimes when I'm in the air. And so this one, I had already written down the title. So my process is basically write down a title and then kind of a synopsis of what I want to discuss. But this one was supposed to be a little bit further down the line, but I had already written out a whole nother chapter of what I wanted to talk about when I did this chapter this week. But I said, you know what? I'm getting so much information from this one and it's so fresh on my mind. I said, I want to go ahead and do this right now. And so I wrote this while I was on the flight. The entire flight, the words were just like flowing. And I really think this is what I'm supposed to be talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we're going to start back with a story basically, and not a story, but just kind of where I was at in life when this topic came up and where I was at in life and what made me think of this topic. So back in 2020, I did a podcast. It was called Aux. It was on the CWF network. If you don't, go and check out CWF network. It's a really cool network. Keeps up with a lot of things, pop culture. It does things more than that. It has a lot of entertainment news. It has a lot of different things that kind of help empower you and be good. I enjoyed working with that network, and basically that podcast that I did dealt with music, and it was just about music. So sometimes I had to kind of go outside the bounds of what I usually would, discuss, like just talk about in music and try to relate it to my life. And so at this particular time, there was a specific topic that I wanted to intertwine with music. And it dealt with a particular friend that exited my life because of some differences that we ran into at the time in our life. And this particular episode, I remember it was called Unblocked. And there's a song that's called Unblocked from an artist who you might know now. His name is Duran Bernard. And I had followed Duran Bernard from back YouTube and all of that back in like 2010, like just his coming from Cleveland, Ohio, and just different things like that. I had followed him for a very long time. I can even remember having him on my flight one time, and I was all excited, but I didn't say anything. I was too shy. But he was on there sleeping the whole time. But it was really like just to have him there. I was like, man, I really been watching him for a long time. But at that time, I was way too shy to be going up and talking to anybody. But I was listening to this song. It was called Unblocked. And he was really starting to, come up in the industry little by little, like singing background for Erykah Badu and everything like that. And I, in that episode, talked about the song Unblocked because I related it to my life and that friend that had exited my life. Basically, the song is saying during that time is you remain unblocked just so I can show you just how much I've like improved. Like it basically saying you have Instagram, you have all these social media sites out there. I'm not even going to block you. I want you to see my come up because of, you might have had thought you was doing something by releasing me from your life or doing whatever, but I'm gonna show you what I'm doing right now. I'm gonna leave you unblocked just so you can see just how far I've come along. And I know there were probably so many more like in-depth parts of that song that I really wasn't catching at that time, but that's what would ring in my head because that's where I was at in that time of, what happened with that friendship. And so during this time, I was in a much different place, and I remember all of my emotions from losing my friend that I confided in, a person that played a great part in all the little intricate parts of my life. Always who I could go and talk to, or I'd run to, or they would tell me some things about them, and I would tell some things about me, and it was just a good solid friendship. And this had been going on for such a long time. I mean, growing up together and everything like that. And in many ways, I did not understand why things played out the way they did at that time. And as I grew and as I learned more, I began to understand where this friend was at that time and just how many more even though that had been such a crazy phase in my life, I was just thinking about how I felt at that time. I wasn't really thinking about how she felt at that time. So through all the seasons I was going through, like the hurt, the anger, the regret, the confusion, and just me thinking how upset I wasn't taking time to really understand where she was at. But now I begin to understand it the more that I grow and the more that I know and the more that I see. I just see how my life has grown and how much I've matured. I am probably not the best at phasing people out of my life. I can say that. Or trying to tell a person that you're not right for me in this season right now or at this stage in my life. So I'm going to need you to just step to the side and I'm going to have to keep moving forward. I am not the best person at doing that. And I can say that openly and honestly because I care so deeply about everyone. And you don't want to say that too much because people take advantage of that, but it is something that I am, and I'm learning to stand in what I am. But there are certain things that I have to do in order to guard myself. Let's go back to guarded nature, guarded guys, in order that people don't mess up the thing that is special about how I deal with people and, the tolerance that I have sometimes for others or the tolerance that they have for me. I can't act like I'm just like the perfect person in the world. Like I am nowhere close to perfect, but they might have tolerance for me. So it may be the same thing, but I just know how I feel about cutting people off. And it may be from that kind of situation that I had with that friend of mine, but who knows? So I do feel at sometimes that I am letting that person down or I'm being a bad friend. And a lot of times I would choose that person's feelings above my own feelings or how I felt at the time. I would just totally disregard how I feel and definitely hold their opinions or not opinions, but their either beliefs or whatever is going on or just how they are in general. I would just hold all of those feelings inside, and I would be like, I'm just gonna kind of hang on to them because I don't want to hurt their feelings. And that's not always the best way to do with things, but it's still a process for me. And I'm learning that anyone that's trying to better themselves or find peace within their life or their circle has the right to let a person know what and why that person or thing is not serving them at this time. You have the total right of doing that. I also learned that usually when the other person takes offense or gets upset, which they have every right to, you cannot make anybody act a certain way. You cannot take it personally. You're not supposed to sit and take personally what somebody else feels at that time, especially if you're the one who like cut them off. So you at that time, that friend could not be upset at me being upset, mad, sad, whatever was going on. They can't control that. It was the way that that process went about that made me feel the way I felt at that time. And you can't change anyone's feelings just because, basically you want to control how they respond or what their emotions are. And that's kind of what sometimes I have a little bit of problem with that, because I want to make sure everyone is happy and everyone is on the same page and everybody is satisfied with the outcome. And that is so unrealistic. I now can look back at the situation that we went through as friends back then, and the route that my friend took in severing all communications abruptly. That friend thought that that was the best thing that they could do at the time. And by saying, okay, I'm going to send you this message, that's the last thing that I'm going to send you, and then I'm going to cut off communication, they didn't want to leave any room for any back talking or double guessing their decision at that time. They needed to find peace, and that's the only way they could find peace was with totally cutting it off right then and there. That to them, that whole friendship and our disagreement was too much for them at the time, and it was toxic enough for them to be like, I can't take all of this that's going on right now, and I'm not willing to even hear anything back about it. And you can't get upset about that, or a person's reaction, or saying, I probably don't want to be either around, or I just don't, that's not the type of person that I want to be around, that is not willing at the time to talk it out. But like I said earlier, you still have to take the time to mature, like I needed to do. And I needed to learn some things, and I needed to go through some things so that I would understand boundaries and the things that people are willing to accept and not willing to accept and things like that. So I always think that maturity does play a big role. I was learning, I was discovering myself, and the friend, even though they think they had arrived at this place of just, I'm great now and I can do all this by themselves, they're even still trying to get to know themselves, and they're fully discovering all the different aspects of themselves and who they want to be as a person. So I don't ever think anybody has just got to the place where they've arrived and they have everything. If that's the case, they've learned everything they need to know, and what good is it? We're always here to live and learn in this life, and I know that for a fact. I do believe that sometimes the clear way of finding out that place is cutting out all the things that confuse you or take you back to a hurtful place. We have to learn to say when enough is enough. That is the truth. And I do think back sometimes at those times, like she had to say enough was enough with what was going on. And we were just growing in two different spaces. We were in two different spaces. We weren't the same as what we were when we were younger. We had to grow into who our fullest selves are. And us being in the way of that, we got in the way of that. So it had to happen at some time. And so I do believe she had to release me for a reason, and vice versa. I needed to, I might not have been ready to, but I needed to release her for a reason. And I will put that her emphasis on it. It was one of my best girlfriends at that time. And it just had to change. And those are the things that we had to do at the time. I am very grateful that that process taught me that that friend needed to be out of my life for me to step into healthier relationships, to build stronger bonds with people more like myself, and understand that that there are others that may not even be like me, but I can still find a way to still be part of that circle. And I think that's some of the things that kind of probably went on with that whole relationship, was that even if we don't agree on everything, or even if we stand in different places at that time in our lives, are we willing to work through those challenges? Are we willing to hear each other out? Or I might have been a different person at that time, where I was so defiant that maybe she couldn't even get through to me. So it could have been me, it could have been her. It was just where we were at that time in our lives. And many times friends or family have an idea of what they want a person to be, or how they want that person to evolve. But that decision, I gotta say, it belongs to that person. That person is going to decide how they want to see themselves in this world. And it's still taking me time, even as a 40-year-old, to discover and realize who I want to be in this world and how I want to be. It's becoming a lot clearer as I grow and as I mature and as I really get thoughts of my own. It is becoming very clear on the person that I want to be. And these are like first steps of things that I want to be, by telling this and talking about purpose and things that really make a difference to me, and trying to have longevity in this life that we have, and what we bring to the earth even after we are out of here. What have we done? So those are some of the things that I am interested in and I am thinking about. Yes, we are interested in the present right now, what is going on, but each step is a building block to what we are leaving with this generation on the ladder. And after we are out of here, those are important steps also. And that's why I think it was so important to generations before us to pass things down, or different things like that. Some of the stuff we could keep, some of the stuff we're going to put that to the side, but we continue to learn and to grow from that past. But we also have a future to look forward to, where we can grow from what other people see in this life. Also, there's not just one specific way of growth in each person. I will always navigate back to this. When I speak on who I am, I always say I am not a thing. I am not a category. I am not a religion. Now, listen closely when I say that. I have a religion, but religion is not me. I want to make that very clear when I say what I say, because a lot of people misconstrue and take it to another place, which we've done a lot within this world as we speak, and we'll take it and we'll run with it. But that's a whole nother chapter. We'll get into that later. Anyway, I say this because one of the main reasons friends and family see you a certain way is because sometimes they are trying to steer you the opposite way of their hurts, their traumas, their missteps. And as a friend or family member, they should do. But I want to make it very clear, please, and I say this, please, so clearly, please allow that person room to grow into the individual that they are purposed to be. And I'll always repeat it again if I'm saying something that just really resonated in my mind. Even in the area of a person that may have been hurt, had all these things happen to them, and they're trying to steer you away from all the hurts and the pains and the stuff that they've been through, you got to allow that person room to grow into the individual they are purposed to be. That's all you got to do. And when a purpose really locks in on their purpose, I will say this, they automatically begin to knock down anything or any person that stands in their way of reaching their highest potential. They're going to barricade through anything that is blocking them when they really realize that highest self of them, or that purpose that they have in their life, and they say, we're going to get this purpose regardless, because it's what is in me and it's who I am and what I see myself as, and I'm really coming into my own. We're not going to even play any games anymore or run around in circles. We're going to say, that's not good for me. Let me move you out of the way so I can pursue and go forward in what I am called to do, what I need to be out here in this world doing. And some people realize that a lot sooner. And I do believe in that point in time of my life when I had my best friend, that we, sister, brother, all of that. At that time, in order for her to push forward into the direction she wanted to go, she had to dismiss other things that got in the way. And that could have even been myself. It's hard for people to say that sometimes because we don't realize, it's hard for us to say it because we're like, oh, well, it couldn't be me. It couldn't be me getting in the way. That's why I tell anybody that I'm in a relationship, I'm in a place where any relationships, friendships, family members, whatever, if I'm in a place that is a hindrance to anything that you're trying to do, if I'm a hindrance, I'm going to tell this to anybody. I do not want to be in the way of your progress with purpose. If I'm getting in the way of anything you're doing in terms of your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, get me out of the way. And you go forth and do what you have to do in this world to make it a better place, because a person should not block anybody from what their purpose, what their destiny is. Yes, there are lessons you have to learn from people. So don't knock out or block out every single person in the world. We will talk about that. Oh, I'm glad I did it in this order. We will talk about that in the next chapter. But for now, make sure you are letting people progress in their purpose and that you are not the hindrance from anyone getting to what they need in this world and in this life. And that is all I have to say today. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me for this chapter of Coleman on Purpose. You can always follow me on YouTube at Deluxe Dave. I'm trying to get those subscribers up on YouTube, so follow me at Deluxe Dave, DeluxeDave. Or you can follow me right on Instagram at the same thing, Deluxe Dave, DeluxeDave. Also, you can follow me over at TikTok, where I'm going to begin to try to post a few more things because I've been off there for a little while. But David J, DavidJ.Coleman, and also follow Coleman on Purpose on TikTok. That is another TikTok place where I place some of my videos over there, or you can see recaps of some of the episodes or some of the main parts that I wanted to talk about in that chapter. Once again, I want to tell you, you are unique, you are loved, and you are created for greatness. Until I talk to you guys in the next chapter, peace.